This is the Steam Deck LCD. If you've checked out my channel before, then you know that I absolutely love my Steam Deck, and I was hyped to get my hands on the original Steam Deck back in the summer of 2022. It was a game changer for me, and I still think it's an incredible piece of hardware. But it has been replaced. This summer, I decided to take the plunge and upgrade to the new Steam Deck OLED model, and since then, the LCD's barely been touched. But why did I make the upgrade? Now obviously, there's the new screen with that gorgeous display, but aside from that, you might not know that Valve actually made a ton of other improvements in this model as well. So in this video, I'm going to dive into all of those upgrades, some major and some subtle that you might not have been tracking. On top of that, I'll also touch on a few things that might not have changed as much as you hoped. If you're curious whether the Steam Deck OLED is worth the upgrade, stick around. Let's start by diving into some of the smaller and subtle changes and enhancements on the Steam Deck OLED. First off, there have been some changes to the ergonomics and aesthetics. The Steam Deck OLED has refined thumbsticks that have a less flat shape and added height. These new sticks have a more pronounced dome to them, which translates to a more natural feel and improved grip. Valve also claims that these sticks utilize higher endurance switches, meaning they should be less prone to drift or wear and tear over time. There's also been some subtle changes to the button design. This one may be trivial, but the Steam Deck OLED has more pronounced coloring on the ABXY buttons, which I think gives the OLED deck a little bit more of a sophisticated look. This change aligns with the overall aesthetic of the OLED model, which just feels more premium and refined when compared to the LCD. There has also been changes to the performance and hardware. A big one that I like here is the weight reduction. The Steam Deck OLED is down to 640 grams compared to the LCD, which weighs 669. Now, shaving off nearly 30 grams might not seem like much, but it contributes to a more comfortable handheld experience, especially during extended play. This weight reduction was achieved through optimizations in the internal layout and the use of lighter materials where possible. Now, when compared to the LCD model, the OLED has a more power-efficient CPU. The shift to a 6nm process for the APU in the OLED model results in better power efficiency, meaning it can deliver the same performance while consuming less energy, which contributes to improved battery life, which we'll discuss later, and potentially lowering operating temperatures. On top of that, the OLED also has faster RAM. The bump in RAM speed may provide a slight boost in overall system performance, particularly in demanding games or when you're multitasking. While this difference may not be dramatic, it's still a welcome improvement. And to round this out, the OLED model also has improved cooling. The thicker fan blades and larger fin stack on the OLED model's cooling system allows for better airflow and heat dissipation. This translates to quieter operation and potentially higher sustained performance as the system can better manage thermal throttling. Now, I think one improvement that's a little bit of a sleeper is that the OLED has upgraded Wi-Fi. The transition to the Wi-Fi 6E is a significant upgrade, offering faster speeds, lower latency, and improved stability, which is a major boost for downloading games and streaming. So anyone that uses Xbox Cloud Gaming or GeForce Now or any similar options. And it's also an improvement for those who like to play online gaming. Now let's talk about the screen. When people think about the Steam Deck OLED, the star of the show is that gorgeous OLED screen. First thing here is that it's actually a bit bigger than the LCD, 7.4 inches versus 7 inches on the original. Now, the overall dimensions on the Steam Deck haven't changed, so how did they do this? Well, Valve trimmed down the bezels, which is giving you more screen real estate in the same compact package, but it's not just about the size. The OLED panel also boasts a higher refresh rate of 90 Hz compared to the 60 Hz on the LCD, which means smoother animations, less motion blur, and an overall more responsive feel, especially in fast-paced games. And let's talk about the visuals. The OLED screen has a wider color gamut, delivering richer, more vibrant colors that truly pop. Plus, it gets significantly brighter. The Steam Deck OLED supports HDR, which has a peak brightness of 1000 nits, and in SDR there's a peak brightness of 600 nits, compared to the 400 nits on the LCD. So basically, this display is just an upgrade in every way. I do want to know that there is a minor difference in the different OLED models depending on which you get. If you're getting the 512 version, you're getting the traditional glossy screen. If you go for the more expensive 1 terabyte option, you're getting that anti-glare etched screen. Now, I've seen a lot of debate on this on Reddit. Some people prefer the glossy screen, some prefer the etched glass, some put an anti-glare on the glossy screen. Ultimately, I think the etched glass screen is more of a luxury upgrade that will truly benefit if it's used in an environment where the light angles are hitting the screen. But really, it just depends on where you do the majority of your gaming to determine if this is worth it for you or not. And honestly, in the long run, I'm not even sure if you'll notice much of a difference. I went with the 512 version, more so just to save the $100. But whatever model you do choose, it's gonna look amazing, and you're gonna see improvements when compared to the original LCD, as you can see here.
Just right. Going in. Where in the... This seems to suit. Come on, you.
Now, battery improvements. For me, the number one reason that I upgraded to the Steam Deck OLED was the improvements in battery life. Prior to this purchase, the LCD was my daily driver, so when considering upgrading, this was the biggest factor that I took into consideration. The Steam Deck OLED model has the bigger battery. Valve says you can get between 3 and 12 hours of battery life on a full charge. Personally, I haven't seen anything close to 12 hours, but I think you might be able to hit it via maybe cloud gaming or emulators, something that's less intensive on the system. Once again, I haven't gotten close to that, but I don't do too much of that. But aside from the bigger battery, we also have that more power efficient CPU that I was talking about earlier. So all of this just accounts for better battery life and longer gaming sessions. Valve claims you can get between 30 to 50% more battery life per charge, and I can attest to these numbers, and at times have even seen a greater improvement in some less demanding games, such as Hades. You will definitely see more game time and better battery life on the OLED model compared to the LCD. And outside of actual battery life, Valve has improved the battery chemistry for faster charging and states that you can go from 20% to 80% in as little as 45 minutes. So a lot of great things are happening here with the battery on this model all around. Now, for all of the amazing improvements on this machine, there are some things that have not changed that I do think is important to be mindful of. First off, when comparing the LCD to the OLED, please keep in mind that for the most part, performance is similar. The change in CPU helps battery life more than performance, and both models have the same amount of RAM, although this one has faster RAM. So while you might see slight improvements in performance, it's not going to be anything drastic. So if you're expecting massive performance improvements, you'll definitely need to temper your expectations there. Next, even though the OLED screen is amazing, it's beautiful, you're still getting the same native resolution of 1280 by 800. It's just a point to keep in mind. And then lastly, and this might be obvious, but you still have the native operating system of SteamOS. SteamOS has its limitations and a number of games will not run via SteamOS. So if you're expecting to magically be able to run games like Call of Duty on the Steam Deck OLED, it's not going to happen unless you're planning on installing Windows. So there you have it. The Steam Deck OLED is an impressive machine. I absolutely love it. It has a lot to offer, including the fancy new screen, improvements to the battery life, and even some subtle refinements. Valve has clearly put a lot of thought into making this a next-gen handheld device. But Is it worth it for you to upgrade? Ultimately, that really just depends on what your priorities are and what you value most in a gaming device. If you crave the best possible visuals, longer battery life, and a more premium feel, then the OLED is definitely worth considering. But if you're perfectly happy with the original Steam Deck and you don't mind the LCD screen, then you might not want to jump ship just yet. And if you're wanting the best in performance or not wanting the limitations of SteamOS, there's plenty of great Windows handhelds on the market as well. Whatever device you're rocking, ultimately it is an exciting time to be a PC gamer. If you have the Steam Deck OLED, whether it was an upgrade or your first go-to, I'd love to hear about your experiences. And if you're in the market for the OLED and you have questions, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more gaming content. Thanks everybody, and game on.